Hey, Blazor fans, welcome back to another Blazor Power Hour. I'm Ed Charbonneau, and I have with me Lance McCarthy and Justin Rice, and we are going to work on our application for another hour today. We've been building a solar-powered dashboard that is pulling data live from Lance's home in Costa Rica and streaming it to what has now become an actual app that's starting to kind of take form here. I'm going to share my screen, get this moving so we can get right into coding today and catch you all up where we are real quick before we get started. This is what we have. We've connected to the broker that is the server sending us data from the solar panel array. We've got a dashboard set up with some UI components added, and we're pulling in an unmarked, I think this is the battery charge. We've got battery power, PV power, grid power, load power. We're going to add some more visualizations to this today, maybe some more gauges and things, and maybe fix a couple of our to-do list items, bugs, whatnot. How does that sound, guys? Did I leave anything out?
That sounds right.
All right.
Yeah.
So we have currently connected, so we're getting live data, so we're good with the app, like it's running correctly. What do we want to tackle first?
You know, one thing that has been bugging me, probably, is that the button for the home page in the navigation view is like a list instead of like a home icon. Just a little
Fix
nitpick.
some icons.
Yeah, like that top left one, the home page, right? That's
Okay,
how do we
let's
set that?
see. Let's try moving this over. Justin, any suggestions?
So let's go to, I've got the project pulled up over here. We'll go to the nav menu.
Let's see, you got nav menu, and then we've got a couple items in here. These are currently using the bootstrap icons, it looks like.
Yeah.
We've got better icons, don't we?
Yeah, I think so.
That's weird. It says it's supposed to be the house build, but it's a list instead.
Yeah, house door, fill, nav menu. These are
Yeah,
the
I'm not familiar with.
bootstrap something icons, but we added the Telerik UI for Blazor. If we go to progress design system, so all of the Telerik components use the progress design system, and that means we have icons that come with it. And then I'm trying to remember where to find the icon list in here. This is all the guidance.
Yeah.
Uh,
This design system is newer. I'm not super familiar with it either.
I know
Oh,
there
there they
it
are.
is,
Yeah,
SVG icons.
SVG.
There we go. And then there's a place where you can view them.
List of
List of
icons.
List of
icons. Yeah,
icons. Yeah, we all
that
got
would be pretty
same time.
self-explanatory.
Wish they would name it list of icons. That would be cool.
There we go. So we've got a home icon in there that we can use. And there's a bunch of icons, by the way. And they're separated into a couple categories like actions, alerts, arrows, borders, charts, CSS.
There's some nice ones
CSS.
in there that you normally don't get. Like anyone can do a Unicode
Editing.
character, but it's not always what you want.
Yeah, so I think there's like 100 something icons in here. There's over 100. And there's some social media ones, some toggle stuff. So we've got everything that we need. We just need to be able to render it in this panel. So
I'm curious, why isn't it showing the house now though? Right there, it's telling us to use the house.
I think I delete the bootstrap theme? No,
Oh,
bootstrap's
is it
still
because the
there.
theme changed and it's
Did I remove bootstrap from here? Kendo default
Yeah.
app. Yeah, I deleted Bootstrap because I don't particularly use it because we have a duplicate CSS framework basically. So Telerik UI for Blazor comes with everything that we need to do. Obviously, all the UI components, but it also comes with layout components, like layout utilities. If we looked back at the design system, I don't know if I still have that in my browser. Yeah, I do. So if we look in the progress design system, there's like stuff to deal with spacing, topography, elevation photography, or iconography. Almost said photography. That'd be weird. But there's these CSS utilities, and if you're into like Tailwind, we have basically the same idea where you can do like flexbox, grid, all of that for layout. So there's no real reason to have Bootstrap anymore. We have all of that here, and even if I wasn't using the progress design system, like I'm very knowledgeable of Flexbox and CSS Grid, and I don't use those, or I don't use any of the Bootstrap stuff for layouts anymore anyway. So I removed it from the app .razor file. I probably should have deleted it from here as well since we're not using it, but that's why we don't have icons. I don't know what it's actually pulling for the icons we do have, to be honest.
But all we have to do is just use the class name for the Kendo theme default that comes from our design system.
Yeah,
Assuming that is loaded. Yeah.
So out of curiosity, let's inspect one of these. So K drawer item, like, but where's the icon coming from? Where is that? I gotta dive deeper in here.
Grid layout.
KSVG icon?
IG
Grid layout. Okay, so there is a Kendo, which is the other name for the Telerik UI for Blazor icon in here somewhere. It's being rendered from. Are we using this nav menu? Is that
maybe that's why we're used because
No.
no, we're not using that either. We forgot to delete that. We killed this.
Yeah.
We can get rid of that as well. Little refactoring here, folks. Just dropping a component we're not using, and then so here, there we go. Text SVG icon grid layout.
So you can probably change that to home, right?
Yeah, let's do that. Home, and then we don't technically have a view for these right now. We just have the home view. We could probably just eliminate those just for now. We might have some other things to add later, like settings pages or something. I don't know.
Yeah, imaginary uses later might be like historical data lookup, and you want to see charts for a particular period of time, but we need the real-time stuff. Perfect, right? And then we can go from there.
We'll get into the whole highlighting of the initial page later. It's actually a whole thing, which is annoying me. Like, I wish that wasn't a whole thing, but it's like, it's probably a whole show. It's really not my favorite thing to talk about. We can have that auto selected. There's a bunch of weird code that you have to write because URLs are hard. So you have to like basically look at the URL and examine it, remove slashes from it if there's trailing slashes. It's a whole thing. So save that for another day. All right, so we fixed that. Any other nags, which we just deleted 3 files and commented out a couple lines of code. Not bad.
No, I guess the only other thing I would mention is we noticed it when we first loaded up. We didn't know that gauge was for battery percentage, but I don't know if we're going to keep that there right now. I'll let you guys run with the layout of what we're going to add. But is there a label property for the gauge that you can put, battery level underneath where the number is inside the gauge?
I think we can one up that. Before I do that, I'm going to fix this little warning too. These are annoying. So this should be either nullable or, let's see, what is that? It's a reference. We'll just do default here. And that's because, oops, I put the bang on the wrong side. That's because it's set by on
This is an interesting topic too, because as we get into IntelliSense being better at looking at whether or not an object should be nullable or not, and if it is nullable, then do we have a default, or do we get rid of it with the bang operator? That's a series on its own.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of content on nullability. We can always dive into a little bit of that if we want at some point. So home and home.razor, I'm going to move these back side by side. I don't know how I messed those up. And then you were pointing something out on this page, Lance. What was it again? The
So right there with the
label for
zero,
that?
like we had a guess was like, oh, we think that's battery percentage. So how would we
Yeah.
add the word battery percent to it?
So that is just a child content area. So we have this template on our label here.
Center template.
Temporarily move that over. And we could just type in your
Oh, that's perfect.
battery. Is the word battery enough, or?
Here it goes. Yeah.
0% battery.
And then connect.
And I mention that now because our plan today is to add more gauges, and we probably consider their labels at the same time we write out the point templates.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then another thing we'll probably do is take these out into their own components eventually. I like to say these are generic components. They can do anything. And then once we added some context here, we added battery. This became a domain-specific component. And we'll rename or take this out and name it like battery gauge or something.
I actually have a question about Blazor in that context. So as I was prototyping this, I noticed that a lot of Blazor devs like to do exactly what you just said. So instead of having one instance of the Telerik gauge there, you turn it into a component. Now let's say that component has its own public properties, or on Blazor they're called parameters, right? So public parameter. Now let's say you're setting that parameter. Is that by reference, or is it its own reference in memory and you're copying from the original into that? Because it matters when you're doing property changed updates. And is this a new instance of that property? You have to worry about updating it, like sending property change notifications. I was having issues with that, and I was considering, like, is it worth duplicating the same thing? For example, let's say a collection of string, right? You have an observable collection of string that comes into your home component, and then you have a grid and a subcomponent, and that subcomponent has an observable collection of string, and then you have the original get set to that parameter. Is there now two copies, or is it one that's still in memory because it was by reference?
I think you get 2 copies.
So you need to explicitly declare it a by reference, or maybe like a public task or something. Okay.
Yeah, or you can use some state management to kind of trim that down. You could put it in a like something that gets injected into dependency injection. It depends on how you want to handle it. There's a lot of ways to handle passing values around in Blazor. So it just depends on what you want to do with it. Let's see. What was the question in chat? Bindle, something about CSS or SCSS? Does CSS
Mixins?
support mixins? So kind of. Yes and no. I would say in the sense that you're looking at it, probably no. But they're much less relevant than they used to be. Mixins would be handy. I think. Wonder if that's in the spec coming up or not. Let's see, native CSS mixins. It's not mixing. They are
Versus SAS.
it looks like it's coming. Looks like there's an apply rule coming. So I don't know what the using or the what do you call it? The can I use is on this. I'll have to look that one up. That's a good question. I know like functions, some built-in functions are supported, but I don't think you can add your own yet.
What is this CSS mixing? I don't know.
It's think of it as a function that returns a style sheet.
Okay.
So you pass in some arguments and you get a style sheet back that renders in line in your CSS. So it kind of so you could have a mixin that creates buttons, and you could say, "Give me a new button that has these color values," and then it'll spit out all the CSS required for buttons of that color.
Yeah, so the Dendo's latest comment, like he wants to be able to say only include K1, K2, K3, but you can do that with your own subclass. Like you don't have to have the entire kind of CSS. There are not minified, subparts to it, and only include what you want instead of doing kind of all.
Yeah, and you could get
it's
really
not a
creative with
function.
variables too. Again, I think that's a whole show we could do.
Yeah.
For now, we want to add another gauge. What type of gauge did we want to add to this?
We
And
talked about
which value? We doing battery power? Is that the one that we're updating?
Well, I can tell you what is important, and then you can Justin can take over on the rendering part. But all four are related to each other, and all four are kind of important to see together. So if we start with load power is how much the house is using, how much it actually needs, and it's drawing. Right. So imagine you have a big bucket of electricity, and you have the tap on the side that needs that electricity. That's the load. Then we have the sources where that load can come from: battery, solar, or grid.
All right, so load power, is this always a positive number?
Always a positive, yep. Because the house can never give energy back.
But
I
we
mean, technically
do,
it
let's
could.
see.
You might have like a generator, but that wouldn't be connected into the house's outlets. It would be connected to the inverter separately.
And then
PV spindle is photovoltaic. It basically means the solar panels. So whatever array you have that's coming in PV is that amount.
Okay.
And to Thendo's last question, in some markets you can sell. In this particular case, I'm not meaning that you can't sell it. I mean that you wouldn't have the generator pumping electricity into the house's outlets so that it looks like the house's power is negative. Instead, that excess would come from the inverter. So the battery might be negative if it's pushing. Yeah, the battery would be negative if it's coming out. And then the grid would be negative if we're selling.
So grid can be negative.
It can be. In this case, I can't because that market doesn't buy it from me. Like where we are on the top of a mountain, there's like thousands of solar panels, dozens of windmills, so they don't buy it from you. But it can, though we should still wire it up as if it could.
Too much renewable energy. It's a good problem.
Yep.
Supposed to grid power and battery power can be negative.
Yep.
Which
and
one's
PV
battery?
can't be negative. Yep, battery.
PV. Okay,
and
so those
grid.
two.
Yep.
I guess I should put them first. All right. So which one of these are we tackling?
Well, the load is always there, so why don't you start there? Right, the house always needs energy.
All right, and are we keeping this display? Or are we adding a gauge? Or
Justin, what was it you were working on for the gauges?
We were talking about doing a linear gauge.
So
are we going to create separate gauges for each of these, or maybe create one that can handle all four pieces, or maybe
I would
one
say we have
negative, two
separate at
negative?
first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do separate first. If there's any commonalities, we'll merge those into something else. I think we kind of have the generic component already since we have our Telerik UI for Blazor stuff. So we
Yeah.
kind of don't need to reinvent the abstraction.
I think there's a
We
section
already
just
have it.
gauges.
Yeah,
if I
linear
remember
gauge is that
correctly.
we're looking at. So linear
Yeah.
gauges have like that thermometer effect, or we can do pointers. We could, in theory, put these all on the same gauge if we wanted to, if they were similar in that way. So we can
Oh, that could be
customize
cool
the
with
heck
different
out of this thing.
numbers. It'd be hard to look at
Yeah.
though.
All right. So let's see. We want to start with a Telerik gauge, and then it'll
Telerik linear gauge.
linear gauge. And then gauges all have a
Well, we're gonna
set of
do
pointers, right?
we're gonna do pointers, or we're gonna do a range.
Linear gauge pointer. We could throw a track in there if we wanted and customize a track. What other values are important here? Let's see what properties we
Okay,
have
that's a
on
good
it.
question, right? So how much power would the house come from? These is given to us in watts and not kilowatts. So it would be 0 to 2,000 watts is probably a safe.
So you're talking about the scale that you want to be
Yeah, so your
dealing with.
ranges would be 0 to 2,000 on there's
Yeah.
not a lot of stuff at the house, right? Just like fridge and like it's not the hot tub is probably the most heavy one, and I disconnected that.
I think just inside of the linear gauge and outside of the pointer, you need to do linear gauge scales to set the min and max. A linear gauge scale.
So we have a scale, and then, yeah, there's our min max values. Min max. So this would be, what do you say? For min and max?
2,000.
Min would be 0, right?
Yep.
This is one of our non-negatives.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put a value here so it stops yelling at me.
Yeah.
And then this doesn't have anything in it, I guess, unless we want to really customize that scale.
Do you want it horizontal or vertical? Because we could make that decision now.
You want to be able to compare it to the other ones, right? So how is this information useful to you when you're looking at how, like, imagine you are the person who wants to know how much your house is using and how much you are getting for free versus how much you're taking from the grid. So maybe for vertical, so you can kind of scan across for the comparison. So this particular block would have maybe 4 vertical, and then maybe when we're talking about the ones that can go into the negative, we can do them horizontal. Or, but
Okay. So you could make it horizontal by saying vertical false, but I think the default is vertical true, so we don't need that in there.
Okay. Less code, the better. Other properties do we have on this? We've got units. I think units is probably just going to default to 1, which is probably fine. But we can set major and minor if we wanted to.
Yeah.
So we could set...
that would actually
like,
be handy, yeah.
Yeah, we could do a major unit of, what is it, 100 would be...
Let's say 50, because 50
Yeah,
watts
50.
is kind of like the jump between good points. And minor would be 1, yeah.
That's gonna be a lot of points. How big is this gauge?
Oh, so these will render
2,000
individual
minor.
ticks?
Yeah, the minor
Yeah, I guess
unit
if
will,
it
and then the major units will get
could
whatever
do
label.
5.
Okay, then make the
Uh-huh.
major 100, yeah, so that we only have 20.
What if we did 10?
Yeah.
But what happens if the mining unit is 10? Does the gauge stick to the next one, or will it
I
still
don't
go halfway between?
I don't
That's a
believe
good
so.
question.
I think it does between.
It's just an axis rendering. That okay?
Yeah, let's I think it's just showing you the tick marks. So linear gauge, we could test this here. That's pointer value, scale ranges, right?
Oh, that's the color section.
Scale
Yeah.
options.
Scale
So you could
options.
turn the minor ticks off, and then let's just do this because we'll throw an in between value at it. So this one, the value is 20. Where's the value label part of it? 20. Let's do 13, and then it should still be in between even when we have the ticks off. Yeah, see, so
Yeah.
it still
Okay.
shows. It's just not going to be
That's
flooded with a
only
bunch of little
rendering
lines.
picks on the axis and doesn't affect the pointer. That's good news.
Right. There we go. So you can see that. We can take the labels off. So now we don't know what this is. Could change the line width, make it extra confusing, and then reverse it. So now we don't know what's going on in that visualization. All right. So we've got our units set up. The pointer value. What else is in the gauge that we want to do? Anything else?
So
We could,
Mr. X Black Dragon has a question: why 2000? Because the total of the house can use at any time is around that level. Like if I went around and turned everything on, including the the split duct heating system and stuff, that would kind of top out at that point, and it never really hits that high. So let's say we made it 5,000 to account for maybe possibly going over the top. That would be once in like 6 months or something. So the gauge over time would be too small. Like the where the pointer would be too zoomed out. So 2000 is right around the right level where that the peak of an average day goes about halfway and maybe 2/3 of the way.
And if we leave this out, I'm trying to remember what it defaults to. Because I think it'll try to pick a number based on what's
That's if it had
in.
access to all the data, but
right.
doesn't know what the next possible highest data point would be. Then it would
I'd love
have
to
to
So it may set
re-render.
it to some scale the first data point, and then you might lose it after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think our controls automatically do something if you don't set a range. This one's got multiple. Let's see what happens if we yank that value out and run it. It's still
Well,
probably
kind
going
of
to be
cheating because
180 because there's a couple.
yeah.
Oh, it went to 50.
Oh, and then we
It,
lost the scales. Nice.
yeah, but it went to the top, so the value's 50. It's like, okay, well, we're just going to max this thing out.
Yeah.
So that's always going to keep changing. We don't want to do that. So we want to set something, but this could be programmatic. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
predetermined.
We could even put it in the app settings. You know what I mean? Go have
Yep.
like a settings page and say, well, what do you want your max to be on all your charts?
Yep. We could do that. You could also do something like take an average over time and use something like that.
Yeah.
To
Dindo recommended something like that, taking the highest point known and multiplying it times 1.1.
yeah. Okay, cool. So we'll leave it at 2000 for now, and then we'll circle back on it some other time maybe. And then we've got our pointer value. Let's see, there's color. I think we're just doing the default for now. And then we don't have anything special for the like we don't have multiple scales or anything for this one, do we?
We can do, because if the house is using over 1,000, that might be something you want to know about. So we can put a scale after 1,000 to 1,500, make it yellow, and then 1,500 to 2,000, make it orange. Like it's not red, like your battery's dying out, but it might be important to understand that, hey, you're using a lot of energy right now.
So we'll just steal this, and then we've got scale ranges. If we do scale ranges, do we still need the scale? We do,
Yeah,
right?
I think
Let's
so.
see.
At the top. Yeah.
Yeah, they go inside of the scale.
And it's inside of also a linear gauge scales tag on the example. See, we're getting a red.
Come on, autocomplete. There we go. So it should be like that. And then how many of these do we want to keep?
I would say only 2 for this one. So we'll go from 1,000 to 1,500, and then 1,500 to 2,000. The other way around on that one.
Oh, whoops. Yep. That'd really mess it up, wouldn't it? And then the other one is from
1,500 to 2,000. And then the middle one would be yellow, so that 1,000 one would be yellow.
So this one's yellow or red? What's the top one?
Red. Or dark orange or red, yeah.
I'm just going to make a note here really quick. So something orange or red, and then the other one yellow?
Yellow is good, yeah.
Yeah. Should we go ahead and make one for the rest of the thing and make it green?
Yeah, what do
See
you
how
think?
it's
Should
good?
it be green, or like so that it has a better contrast
Yeah.
against the white of the app?
I think I have a coding error in here too.
I think so.
They shouldn't be nested like that, am I right? It didn't seem to care, but I don't think that would have been correct. Yeah, that was
the example.
when I
There's a
deleted
linear gauge.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if tag linear gauge scales is necessary or not.
Yeah, I think this is the outermost scale, and then this says it has a collection of scales, and then there's individual ones in here.
Yeah, one is the ranges collection.
Yeah,
versus
these are the
overall
ranges.
scale. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm saying in the example in between the outermost tag, the Telerik linear gauge, there's a linear gauge scales section tagged, which goes in between the one you've got highlighted now and the outermost.
Oh, that might be a bug that got ignored. And
linear gauge scales.
Scale. And the pointer goes inside that. Complaining to you.
Seems redundant, but let's see. We'll just do this here. This is how we have it, right?
Yeah. See if it works.
So we need to change the max to 2,000.
Oh, there's an error. Yeah. Good catch, Justin. So we need to add that grouping there. And then the pointer value is on its own, right?
Yeah, the pointer's in a separate.
There we go. All right, so I highlighted these colors because I don't want to hard code colors like this. I don't like that. I'm going to go back to, I don't have it open anymore, progress, design system. And there is a color section in here and a color palette. Where's it? Swatches. Swatches. We have the default theme in here. And there are theme variables that we want to look at. And in here we have a bunch of colors. So
Ooh,
we
warning,
have,
success. Those
yeah.
would be perfect. Yeah.
So these are better to use because if we ever change the theme, then the colors will change with it. So
Awesome.
like we have a warning that we could use that's like a yellow. There's an error
But I
that we
wouldn't
could
say that
use.
1500 to 2000 should be an error. What is just below error, but not a warning? Saw some subtle stuff. It was like orange. Go scroll down a little bit where the reds were.
So these are all error.
Yeah.
These are different like variations based on where the error UI is. So like this is a hover state. This is an active state. That's
Okay.
a
For
subtle
that,
hover.
yeah,
So
the
they're
subtle one.
different emphasis. There's emphasis, there's subtle. So you want to de-emphasize, but you want to hover it, or it's active. So we could do.
Error emphasis looks slightly less red than dark red.
So
Or you
error
want,
emphasis.
yeah,
You like the red orange tone?
yeah, that one. This is for the top
Okay.
range.
So the way we
Okay.
use these is we'll come back here, and in color, we can just slap in a CSS variable here. We say var, and I think Thindle will like this because he said he likes the way I abuse CSS. We do kendo dash error emphasis here, and that's going to pull the variable from the theme in CSS. And then we've got the lesser warning. We want to go down to the yellow.
Yeah, wasn't it just regular warning? Yeah.
Regular warning. All right. And you probably haven't seen anybody use this way, Justin. This is very new cutting edge stuff that we just added in the last release, and it's not documented to use it this way, but it does work this way, and there's nothing that would
This is
break
awesome.
by doing
To
it
me,
like
this
this.
is like, as a XAML dev, I would appreciate this because typically we use something called a static resource when inside another thing you use that key for the CSS variable name. Oh, what would you call this? A theme variable?
These are CSS variables, and they come with our design system themes. So I'll do a little demo with this too, and I'll throw one up here.
So if you were to use the number, the hash number or whatever, would it still track the theme if you change it, or do you have to do it this
No,
way for that to
no.
work?
If I use the hex code here, it will not change if the theme of the app changes. With this, if I change the theme of the app, it will also change the colors that are represented in this area.
The hex code is
So
actually RGB values, right? So the FF means white. It means 255. So it's 255, 255, 255. And 0 to 255 determines the color, the value of the R, G, or B. So when you see something like FF, that's white. Or FF0000, that's red. Or 00FF00, that's green. Yeah, and it can trip people up because it looks like it might be a reference to something else, but it's actually just a hard-coded number that has 3 different values for R, G, and B.
what's really cool is in CSS now you can do conversions back and forth. You can mix colors in real time, all of that, which wasn't possible just earlier this year.
Seems like 2024 is seeing a lot of innovation in this space.
It's the year of CSS, right? Like what's really nice is in our last release we ditched the hard dependency on Sass for our themes, so you no longer need Sass to customize our themes. You can globally change things at runtime with CSS. It's really awesome. So let's go ahead and bind the value to it. Go ahead and put battery power up there. Why is it red underscoring me? Oh, because it's a string, right?
It's a string right now, yeah. So we did battery power value for the numerical one.
So
line
battery
12.
power needs to be. We
See on
want to
line
add.
12, we already did the conversion. So the variable you
Oh,
want is
okay.
that one. Yep.
This is the same value.
Yeah.
I just want to show what I just did here as well, because we already have a
Yeah, we're already using
battery
that in the
power
gauge, I thought.
value. We need to rename, I think. This should be battery charge value or battery charge. And then we don't have a battery power value. That one got named incorrectly. By the way, I jumped to the code behind file by holding Control on the keyboard and clicking on the field name, and it brings
Oh,
me
cool.
right to it. So this needs to be battery charge. And then we need a double battery power value like that. And then where we're grabbing the battery power total, we need to not make a string out of it.
They all come in strings from the broker.
Oh, we
And
need
depending
to.
on what we're expecting, you can parse it. As a dev, you know what that would probably be, and you parse it to that type. Yeah.
So this needs to be a double dot parse.
There's
We can
there's currently a bug that we made by accident because battery charge is incorrectly named on 53. Maybe it should be
Okay.
battery state of charge. Go down to line 53 because to make that connection between the two, I think it's a string. Go up one a little more. Yeah. State of charge battery. So maybe battery level percentage.
All right, so we need to change the name of the
Yeah,
variable.
it's easy to confuse these two because one is a wattage amount and one is a percentage amount. Yeah.
All right, so refactored that out, so changed it down here as well. We've got a new battery power value, which we can use there now. And then that chart should work. We'll go ahead and run that. And then we'll do a little explanation of what the CSS is doing here. And we have an on object not set to an instance of an object, gauge pointer, add self to parent. Something's wrong with my markup, I think.
Yeah. Missing a parent. This is
So we've got
linear gauge pointers. The linear gauge pointer needs to be inside linear gauge pointers.
Thank you, Justin.
Yeah, no worries.
So that is a collection of things. Why am I not getting it to auto indent? Is it just Razor being Razor, or do I have an error?
I don't see anything.
Oh, there it is. And it's a
nice.
hot mess.
Yeah, we got luck.
And there's
It's a real
our
hot
major
mess.
tick value kicking us in the butt.
Yeah. So we need to adjust the tick values because they're just
maybe 500 instead. And then minor 20.
that looks a lot better. Why do we have a black bar?
Yeah,
The variable is not working. Those are supposed to
the
be two different
variables?
ranges, but they're both black.
Yeah, they're both black. Why are they both black? Did I name them wrong? That could be. What did I name them? I've got one up at the head here, so I could check on it. So Kendo warning. I think I know what it is. So I'm gonna let it run because this isn't a breaking change. It should be Kendo color. Right, like that, I believe. I'm missing a prefix, I think. It's not a documented thing I'm doing here because that's how I roll.
It's cutting edge stuff. This is why people tune in.
There we go.
Hey, nice.
So I colored the top of this just to show folks what the CSS variables do. So if we look at it, you'll see I added a background color style just directly to the element with an inline style. And I've got Kendo color warning. And you can see the hex code above
There
it.
it is.
So DevTools is showing me the hex code. We can see the color here as well. And if I click on this in DevTools, it will take me to where that variable is located. So there's all of our colors in our color palette. And you'll see this root. So this is a pseudo selector for the absolute root of the document. So this is like the global namespace for CSS in this app. So anything at the root level is overridden by anything beneath, like literally like body and every time this updates, it's moving my cursor. Anything in the body or HTML tags and below can override this. So that's where those reside, is like the absolute root. There's no physical element. It's a pseudo selector element. So it's at the absolute root.
This is handy because I can make an on-the-fly change on the color. So I don't necessarily like what we chose for that top range. It looks too much like the theme accent color.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it should be more red, something like, where are the other colors?
We can see them right here.
Yeah, so let's say we chose.
Oh, those are primary.
Yeah.
Let's
show more.
And that's our theme color. Like we could change our theme color as well. So this is also pretty cool. If I do this, this isn't a permanent change, obviously, but we can always change this value to blue. Nothing has primary. I thought that was the primary color. Color primary. That demo failed. That should have changed color.
I would think the color on the first gauge there is a primary, but
is that not primary? Come on, inspect. My inspection tools over here. Oh, it's pulling the color. It's an SVG element, so it's hard coding it at runtime. It gets hard coded into that one.
So you probably have to set the fill on the pointer and the markup, and then it will use that instead of hard coding it.
Yeah, the component does that internally. So we won't bother with that through here anyway.
Well, I think before we end today's show, we should add the gauge for the battery because it goes negative, and that's a special condition. Battery power.
I do want to show something with this CSS variable real quick before we move on. So I set the, so I showed you the root and where the colors are defined. And then I showed you I used an inline variable here. That inline variable is going to override anything beneath it. But if I come up, I think, to this level, because this is the container element here, I could see if this is going to work. Add an attribute at this level of a style equals, and then it was double dash Kendo color warning. Let's try that.
Very cool.
Because this element is further down the hierarchy, it will actually override everything that is inside of this tag. So you can manipulate these values per scope, depending on where they are in the markup. So you could have a section of code that's like, all right, anything that's in this box is going to get colored different because I say so. So they're really flexible, and I love.
That's handy when you have maybe you have like a photo editor or your greeting card creator, and you can have a theme selector for your greeting card creator, and it would only change the greeting card visual tree.
Yep, you could do all kinds of crazy stuff like that. All right, so let's add another gauge, and we want to try to just copy this one, maybe.
Yeah, let me paste it into our chat. It's basically everything we already did, and should I put it here? Everything we already explained today with the ranges and stuff, but all he did was just, spend more
Yeah.
time thinking about
I'm only
which
getting
thing
half
it
of it
is.
in chat.
Let me put it in Teams instead.
It truncated it. So we'll drop in another one, and then this is load power now, right?
It would be battery
So
power
we're
because
doing
we go
battery
positive
power.
and negative. Yeah. So we'll have
Save
to
that.
put the variable in the
And then we've got
pointer.
our pointer
Oh yeah,
variable
explain
name
that
there.
one. What is
Oops.
dark?
Yeah, oops, I accidentally hit run with debugging. So, all right. Whoa, that's huge. All right. We need to put these in containers soon. So this one has a, let's do inspect on it. So this one, okay, the stroke on this one actually is pulling from the CSS variables. And I put a var of kendo color dark in that. That's not right. It shouldn't be dark. We changed that, didn't we? This
Well,
is
I
an
think
older
we
version of what I
put
sent you. Yeah, it should be kendo color on surface. Was that right? I need to look back at the variable stuff. So dark is going to work okay unless we do, let's see, I've got it in a snippet. Let me pull my snippet. So this will show it better.
Yeah, color on app surface.
Color on app surface. If I use Kendo Color Dark, here's what happens if I go to a dark theme.
Can't see
Notice,
the pointer.
yeah, you can barely see anything there. That's because dark, even in the dark color theme, dark is still a dark color. So what we've got is on app surface.
I think you added
Save
app this time.
that. Now it's white. And the reason for that is if I change the theme back to a light theme, it's giving me like the opposite color. So it's always contrasting no matter what the theme is. So if I go in and grab a darker theme, let's see, main dark, it's going to grab the contrast. It's the same idea as the text values here. Like you want those to always be like a sharp contrast so you can read them. So that on app surface, the app surface is kind of the background color of the entire app. So the app surface is black. If I'm on the app surface, I want the contrast. So that's where the on app surface comes from. So it's part of the design system that we're leveraging again. That's why it's nice to have the design system behind
What
all of
else did you
this.
do there? I think the margin helped move the pointer a little farther off the axis too,
Oh
so we could
yeah,
see it.
the margin will move around the pointer depending on if the pointer's on, if it's a vertical, it'll move it to the right. If it's a horizontal, it'll move it to the top. So if we come back here and change the margin to 0, it's going to ride the line. There's actually, we could probably use a CSS variable for this too. I don't know if it would help or not. But we could possibly use a var dash kendo spacing. Let's try one. See if that works. We could leverage this design system for that. No, it doesn't let me. It wants it has to be a numeric value there. So CSS won't work in that context. So this is converting a literal like decimal value or integer value. So no design system hacks there. Probably shouldn't call it a hack. It's a feature.
Right. So I guess the only other difference we need to do in the main app for now is change it to vertical, and it should line up with the other one. Like, what prevents it from stretching too tall?
Too many browsers here. Hang on, let me kill all this. Losing track of where I'm at.
There's a lot of styling, and I think in that example, it's in a div that has some height and width style to it.
Yeah, so these will go to the container width. There is also a width setting on the component. So at the top level here on the gauge.
But we're gonna turn vertical false off and make it vertical.
Oh, do we want? Yeah,
we want them all to be the same next to each other.
Okay, we'll
vertical
change that one.
Yeah.
And then we don't need the width. I don't know what it picks for the height. There. It's picking up like the remainder of the page. It could have been a hot reload issue, to be honest. That's what it was.
Oh, there we go.
It didn't like the hot reload.
Yeah. But we do want these stacked side by side. I guess if we're gonna have them stacked vertically like this, then we should make them horizontal gauges so that they're stacked on top of each other. If we can stack them vertically sideways, it accomplishes the same goal.
So we should probably talk about layout on the next show.
Yeah.
Because we can add some panels. Like, let's see, where's my...
It would be cool, like little draggable panels that you can rearrange, like a little box that you can have one with the gauges in it, and it can be like reordered to another part. Or if you like the radio gauges, you'll drag that one.
So we've got a grid layout that's more permanent. This actually just leverages CSS grid. We've got
the tile layout is the draggable.
The
tile layout.
Yeah.
Right.
Tile layout does like it's a lot more than just CSS grid. So we can actually resize these. We can move things around. What we may actually want to do is add some sort of toggle for those to be vertical or horizontal, because depending on where you put it, you might want it to be, if I stretch it all the way across the bottom, I might want it to not be a vertical chart, but a horizontal one. So we might want to add some logic, or add a settings panel that comes up here or something.
Yeah, you can put a toggle switch in that header bar, right? Like it could be up on the opposite side of the title. And it's just toggle vertical.
I think so. I need to look at the templates for each of the tiles here. This is what they're in their own files. Yeah, they don't have they have a text field for the header.
Instead of a header template.
Yeah. I don't know if they have.
Well, we can figure that out next time. Now that we have our gauges, we have our values coming in, the 4 most important values, right? We can use those to do our initial layout for that dashboard. Now we understand that the gauges are working well for some of the values. We have one that works in negative, ones that are only positive.
I think we left the value of that second gauge hard coded to -100.
What?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we didn't wire that one up. Let's do that real quick before we save this. So this one should be at battery power. Like that.
Battery power something.
Battery power value.
Cool. I mean, we don't need the strings anymore, right? Because Blazor will do a 2-string on a double anyways. The only reason we really had string backing field for these is just to make sure that the MQTT service is working. Now we can, maybe at the beginning of the next episode, we can take out those strings and only have the real numeric value for the things that have them, and we don't have this problem again.
Yeah. We also probably should turn the animation off on that. Because it's on all of, if you're doing real-time data, the animation probably just could go.
I think it's a click. I think it's called transition in the top outermost tag of your transition equals false. Or just false.
It's just it's just a flag.
Yeah.
Okay, I was making sure. I thought it was a type at first when I saw transitions. I was thinking there might be more than one, so there might be an enum.
Yeah, there you would have one like on value set and value change, but they're kind of the same thing.
Okay, so that'll eliminate the repetitive drawing of those things.
Janiscu really has a question on: can we turn the text on the component 90 degrees? Do you mean the labels on the gauge range? I see what he means. Like, but I don't know if I would want it that way though. Imagine reading that 1000 as if it was vertical with the gauge, as if we took the horizontal gauge and just transformed it as a whole. It's kind of hard to read that.
And then I think we should keep the ranges maybe the same color and either change the primary color later, or at least
I
change
think you can change that max to 1000 so that it lines up with everything else for now. We don't frequently go over 1000 in live data. Yeah, so 1000 for that, and then 750 to 1000, and then 500 to 750. That would be 500. So the second one would be from 500 to 750.
This is making my brain hurt.
Right.
That had to happen, folks.
Yeah.
I can't do the reverse logic there. All right.
And now when we do start next week, when we stack them next to each other, they'll all be the same top scale, and we'll have an easy comparison between all of the usages in real time.
Oh man, they're like that here too. I'm gonna have to change those next show. We get a hard out here, but this is like for my Bulgarian friends, going from first and then like two, like this is like saying yes when you shake your head no. It just doesn't. So this isn't working with me.
Yeah, that's a funny story. When I first started working for Telerik in 2012, the Bulgarians shake their head this when they mean it, like yes, it's a backwards. Eastern European thing.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm not sure if all of them do it, but the ones that I know and went over there and I learned about this, and they have to fight that with Westerners.
Yeah, we added some linear gauges, we factored a bit.
And then some styling tweaks, like the icons.
There we go. That's good enough for now. All right, guys. We will reconvene next week and do a little bit more tweaking on this, fixing up some of these gauges, maybe adding some dashboard layout functionality. I think that's the big ticket item is the resizable widgets, for lack of a better term. Let's not bring back any bad memories, but y'all remember widgets?
Yeah.
Web
yeah, I think
widgets.
This will add a super level of like professionalism to the app to be able to do this.
Yeah, this is really cool.
Looks so much better just as soon as you drop those in the tile layout.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll have enough time to hit this next show, but what you can also do is save the state. Oh, actually, probably can. We'll just grab this demo and use the code from it. So when you drag these around and come back to the app after you reload, it's still the same configuration, because who wants to spend all that time customizing a dashboard only to come back and have all the tiles at the original locations? That'd
Yep.
be super, super annoying. So we will try to add that as well. But that will be our stream next week. So until then, enjoy the rest of your week, folks, and we will see you soon.